so I can't quite remember what anything was like without her now, and that just seems normal. But then it also is kind of crazy when you stop and think about it. One of the benefits of, you know, being an athlete and training for a really long time is that I have the ability to adapt, and it makes it a little bit easier kind of coping with the rougher times that aren't rough, but it's just like having somebody that's dependent on you 100% of the time, and you have to be completely selfless, going from being a professional athlete, which is totally selfish. So that's like a real change, but it's actually been nice and kind of refreshing. You know, it has its moments, and sometimes you're a little bit more tired and the bags under the eyes are real most of the time, but honestly it's really, really cool. Like it's the best, and I think any parent says that.
How did you go throughout your pregnancy in terms of making your body adaptable? Obviously, we saw you during the Open, and there were movements that you could and couldn't do. How did you cope with that, going from being an elite athlete to a very scaled athlete, and looking after your body, preparing yourself for childbirth?
I first and foremost, you know, I have chats to myself, and I've done that forever being an athlete. Have a conversation, understand that I've made a choice. I've made a choice to be a parent, to have a child, and that comes with a certain, you know, a change, like a whole heap of changes, right? And I chose that. So first and foremost, I had to understand that was my choice. Then, you know, I did all the research of what was, you know, most important for the baby. That was ultimately like, what's the most important, what's detrimental, what's okay for her. And then the next is what's safe and okay and not okay for me. The general rule is if there was ever a doubt, then it was a no. And I think it always has to be like that. And then so I got as much education as I possibly could, and then for the rest of it I just went by feel. And I think you really have to be in tune and just trust your intuition, and I have always done that, and I did that throughout the entire time. Didn't take any massive risks and just kind of let it be what it needed to be, which made the process 1,000 times easier, instead of trying to like push back against something that wasn't going to change. The reality was there was a person inside me, I was growing it, things were going to happen out of my control. And so, you know, I could either spend that 9 to 10 months or whatever it is, you know, 41 weeks, it ended up being fighting back against something that was going to just happen anyway, or I could just accept it and roll with it and make it really cool.
How was labour? Like, how does it compare to Murph at the Games?
You know what? The one thing I learned in labour is, and I always had a really open mind, and I've always done that. You know, people write birth plans and they have this whole way of that they want it to go. And again, I just really understood that it was something that I couldn't control. It turns out I definitely had no control. I had a certain element of control, and, you know, I can't say that working out or labour or one is harder than the other. They're so incredibly different, and then from person to person, they're so incredibly different. Like, you hear my story versus someone else's story, and it's totally different. My labour was so much longer than I expected. You know, I had like a slight issue in that, like, her head wasn't positioned in the right, like wasn't in the right spot, so that made things a little bit more difficult. They're things that you can't plan, and if you have a rock solid plan and you just end up distressed because it's not going to plan, like, don't get me wrong, it was intense. The one thing that I definitely figured out was that my training really paid off in the end when it came time to push. So aside from all the complications of everything else, and it came time to work, that was good to go. You know, from start to finish, it was like 54 hours, and it's a very long time. And at that end time, like, coming down to time to for that time to push, I had to work, and I was exhausted, and I can imagine everyone is exhausted by that stage. And that's where my training really paid off, and it was like a workout, and I just like got to work and got it done. And that was, oh, thank God I was strong, because it didn't drag out fast. It was good.
The thing that I love about being at your house, and, you know, you and Maddie have all your trophies and your medals downstairs, how does that compare with this journey?
Oh my gosh, it's totally different. The one thing that I said early on, and it's so true, and it sounds so corny, but it just feels like I've done all these really cool things, and Maddie's done all these really cool things in his life, both totally different, and but just amazing, and stuff that we're really proud of, and we've always worked really hard. But it feels like it just had no purpose until now. So it feels like all of a sudden you just kind of get this like complete circle for us. Like, you have this like little person, and everything that I feel like everything I've ever worked for now has purpose, because I learnt lessons that I then pass on.
What's next for you now? Are you back into training, or where are you at with that side of things?
Yeah, so I had, there's a real blanket rule that's kind of like 6 to 8 weeks. You get like a doctor's clearance and then you go back to training or whatever, and it's super mild. And I've understood that. And like I said, I'm very self taught. I find as many resources as possible and I ask every question. I want to make sure that I enjoy the process of being a parent too, and I'm very much doing that, never sacrificing that. I had no plan as to when I would train or what I would do. And it was 5 days postpartum, and I'd done all this research and picked the things that I wanted to do that were like my rehab. So, pelvic floor, ab separation, all those kind of things that happen that you need to look after before you go into proper exercise. And I started that on day 5, and it just felt ready. I kind of woke up and I had this shift, and I felt, okay, I'm ready to spend 20 minutes, it wasn't even long, where I just kind of worked through that process to see where I was at. And then I consistently did that. And then in my 4th week postpartum, I started doing sweaty aerobic stuff. Again, not planned. I've sort of assessed a few things along the way, like how's my ab separation, all that kind of stuff. And I made a call that it felt okay and good for me to do something that was just aerobic and sweaty. Like, I'm talking sitting on a bike. And then at about the 6 to 8 week mark, I'll get another formal assessment and see where all of those markers are at, and then just slowly start, integrating things back in based off that. But really, I'm just not in a rush. I don't want to make any hasty decisions and then do something I'm going to regret and then have that sort of set me backwards. I've learned over the 7 years doing CrossFit that progress is slow and steady, and that's, slow progress is fast progress, really. It's constant rather than going up and then having big falls. So I want to try and qualify for the games next year. But I'm really open with the fact that I don't know how this all goes. It's the first time. But I want to qualify next year with the change in the whole structure that kind of works in my favor a little bit. It's over 12 months away before the games, which is plenty of time. And then I've got all these sanctioned events that I have an opportunity to potentially qualify. So if I'm not ready until May next year and I want to do the Aussie one, then I can do that and see how I go.
Do you think you'll be ready for the Open this year, or is it just kind of don't set a time frame and you'll...
I've got like I've kind of sort of set it as, because it opens October, I would like to participate. I don't know what that participation looks like. I might just excel, and the baby might be awesome. She might be chill and I get training days in and I progress and my body just recovers. It's amazing. Or I might be struggling to get a couple of days training in, and I don't know what will happen there or how my body is going to go at that point. But I kind of look at it, I will participate at the bare minimum like I did doing the Open when I was heavily pregnant. So I might do it with scaled options or anything like that and participate as a part of my affiliate. Or I might do it, RX, but just not be too fit or too awesome just yet. Or I might be fit and awesome and do well. I don't know. But I will participate. I'll see where that goes with no expectations and use that as kind of my introduction to see where I'm at and then what needs to be done to move forward.